How we doing? Good. All right. Majority Leader Stuart Cousins, thank you. Thank you for being a woman of great principle and heart and compassion and dedication to service. Since I got into state government, it's been a jungle. It's a little more complicated in the sense that when you're in Congress, you kind of know what the dynamics are. You know who's on your team, who's not. It's pretty clear cut. It's a bit more complicated in state politics, just being honest. But I knew right away with you where your heart is and who you care about. And as you just put it, it's the people. So let's lift her up as a shining example of what it means to be a public servant. Thank you. Suzanne, thank you. To all the electeds, I want to jump right in if I can, because I've been doing a lot of thinking of late, and I want to speak about our values as Democrats, and I say as Democrats, but honestly, what I'm really talking about is as Americans and as people and as human beings. It just so happens that we're waving the flag forward at this particular time. Decency, fairness, justice, equality, freedom, integrity, compassion, truth, love, these are values, these are principles that undergird what our amazing county exec talked about, which is how do you be effective, how do you get things done? Right? We can point to the things we get done, but what's driving the action in the first place? What's enabling us, what's compelling us to do these things and to do right by people in the first place? The values do. And the moment the values begin to lose grip, everything else falters. We see that in Congress with all the dysfunction. When you forget why you're there in the first place, the whole place shuts down. Nothing gets done. When the moral foundation begins to crumble, when left, right somehow overtakes right, wrong. We cannot forget the moral center. The substance has to matter. So, when I was growing up in Schenectady, an upstate kid, working class folk, this is how I was grounded before anything else. This is why my mom had me in church every single Sunday, and in Bible study every single Wednesday, and in Bible study summer camp all the time, and while I was in the choir, and while I was an usher boy, and while I was in Sunday school. I'm just telling you how I was raised so you can understand what I bring to the table as your public servant. My dad told me don't cheat. Have integrity, say what you mean what you say. Earn your keep. Nothing is promised. You look someone in the eye, you say something, you better mean it. Basics as a father that I try to tell my kids every single day. Our children are watching. And they're trying to watch leaders. They need examples and not morally bankrupt people who exploit the fears and anxieties of folks going through hard times, which has become the norm in our political life. Exploitation of people's fears and anxieties as opposed to elevating that sense of unity and purpose and commonality, our humanity. These are the things that we as Democrats have got to lean into hard and aggressively, principally. What's interesting is, if you look at what's happened culturally in our country, the idea of public goods has receded. It's no longer present front and center. It's all about me, I, the self, the ego. Whether it's in consumption, what we consume, material, doesn't matter. We've become very egocentric in how we orient ourselves in society. Public goods suffer. What do I mean by public goods? Education is a public good. Healthcare is a public good. Public information, otherwise known as truth. Truth and facts, objectivity, the things that allow us to order ourselves in society. You know, a lot of folks talk about law and order and how important it is to have order. How can you have order if you don't have objectivity, if you don't know where you're going? What's right, what's wrong, what's left, what's right, what's up, what's down? How? How do you make informed decisions? If you're looking at a red light and someone says, no, it's green, how do you trust to move forward? If the world is chaotic and we can accept an objective set of facts, when people can admit when they lose an election and everybody in the world knows it. These are facts, not to be debated. Not to be debated. Everybody can have an opinion. You cannot have your own set of facts, especially if you believe in law and order. Collective bargaining, labor, that's a public good. It's how you make sure you have wages, livable wages. So when you have folks out there undermining that ability to collectively bargain, they're undermining a public good. Public participation, otherwise known as voting, is good. And any public servant that makes it their business to make it more difficult for you to participate is an enemy of your freedom. You know what's not good? Greed. Greed is not good. Somewhere along the line, somehow, it became good. I'm not sure how or why, but we gotta flip the script and get back to understanding that greed is not good. Shared prosperity is good. That's good. Greed is not. And any system of government that makes it its business to protect, finance, or enable greed cannot be centered in the true mission of democracy. Cannot be. Now I'm about to start sounding like a real Democrat. You might remember FDR, remember that guy, right? 1936 Democratic National Convention, speaking of what he called economic royalists. Quote, they had begun to consider the government of the United States as a mere appendage of their own affairs. We know now that government run by organized money is just as dangerous as government run by organized mob. That's a Democrat right there. Talking about money and politics running away with the will of the people. People start losing faith in the system when that becomes the reality, when that becomes the norm. And we as Democrats suffer the most because we're the ones waving the flag for it the most. So we have to be on the front lines protecting against this, not enabling it. Those who don't wave the flag, they don't come across like hypocrites. We do if we don't stand up and fight. We lose our credibility because that's what we're standing on. That's what we're preaching. So we have to be out there waving this flag. And I'm tired of folks who have made it their business to exploit. You know, it was Dr. King who said, in the quest for power, I cannot bypass the concern for morality. In the quest for power, I cannot bypass the concern for morality. And a lot of folks right now are bypassing that concern. They're bypassing it. It's pathetic, it's sad, and it's shameful, and it's dishonest. I believe that we as Democrats, we have a real responsibility on our hands. You know, we're the ones who believe in thoughtful, compassionate, justice-driven government that reflects the will of the people. But a lot of folks out there right now don't see that. And so we end up having to carry the burden of that. And they can feel heavy. But we have to own this now. We have to embrace that fight. Because we're the last line of defense. We have to carry that. And do the work every single day, at every single level of government. 16 days, right? Is that what I heard, right? Every day has to matter. Every second has to matter. How you engage with yourself, your community, your family, your neighbors, all of it adds up. People are hurting. Whether it's child care costs, health care costs, student loan debt, you name it. Inequality is growing. People are really trying to get by, and they want to feel like the person who's there to serve them is really there to serve them and not exploit them. Not make them feel weaker, but actually empowered. That's going to show up and actually listen. Listen to them in a real and honest and genuine way. That's what it takes to show up. So during these 16 days, show up. Everywhere. Reach out to everybody. Don't be dogmatic or don't prejudge. Don't assume. You know, I was talking to the chairman earlier. Actually, we were having breakfast and we were talking about the power of listening and how it's a lost art now. People don't listen. They're too busy thinking about what they want to say in response to whatever they think you're going to say. And nothing gets talked about. But we were talking about my wife, and we were talking about her work in the film space. As a black woman and a Jewish woman, it's been a tough week, tough 2 weeks. But the importance of difficult conversations and what difficult conversations actually do for you. That's one of the big things she taught me in our marriage. You don't always want to talk. It's easy enough to talk. But when you talk, and you actually listen to each other, and you work through it with the communication, it's like a massage with a knot in your body. It finally relieves the pressure, and the blood flows again. You can move on and be well. Right now we got a whole lot of knots in our body politic. And no one's doing the massaging. No one's doing the real communication. No one's trying to bring anybody together and have honest, thoughtful, good faith conversations where it's okay to be wrong and you won't be vilified or demagogue. It's okay to show your ignorance. It's all right. But you're at the table ready to work and listen for the greater good. For the greater good. That's leadership. Don't get that confused with folks who show up on your TV screen and just blather about. You got a book deal to sell, something like that. That's not leadership. That's just called being famous and being a celebrity. That's all that is. That's not being a leader. We got to get back to identifying what it means to be a leader and what it takes to be a leader. All of us have that capacity. We have to listen. We have to engage and be honest and thoughtful with each other, have compassion for each other, hold ourselves to account, acknowledge our own faults and insecurities. It's okay to be vulnerable. We got to create that environment too now. Not just stomp somebody out because they got it wrong or said it the wrong way. You know how many people I had to win over in the district that Trump won back in 2016 by 7 points? That 2/3 of my district didn't even have my party affiliation, Democrat, Republican, Independent, 1/3 each. That 90% of those folks were white. There's no way I was going to be able to have success if I couldn't go into those communities and spaces and have real, honest, open-hearted conversations where I listened first before I came in and dictated what I said. Here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I think you need. I want to understand why you're hurting, what your family needs, how can I help? That's the work of being a public servant. That's the work. So, I just want to say a few things that I think are really, it's important for us to be mindful of right now in these times. They affect everything. When you have folks hurting and they're anxious and they're in fear, what happens is you get individuals who want to scapegoat certain communities. They want to scapegoat certain communities to make other people feel like, oh, it's their reason, it's their fault, that's the reason why I'm hurting. Instead of seeing the systemic realities that are affecting everybody. This has become a game now. So as demographics change and more communities of diversity, multicultural ethnicity begin to materialize all throughout the country and the state, in a corresponding way, there's this rhetoric around, well, you're suffering because of them. As opposed to, wait, let's turn the eye at the whole machinery here and understand what's going on. That's a dangerous, dangerous game that's being played by certain so-called leaders. They play on the fears of America's evolution into a spectacular multiracial and multicultural democracy instead of doing the important work of elevating our collective consciousness to see the beauty in that moment in the first place. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And we should be embracing that and leaning into the power and the strength of that as a country. And we as Democrats got to carry that. We can't run away from that narrative. We have to embrace that narrative. It's not just about checking the box and saying, oh, well, we have the first this, the first that, the first this. What does that all mean? It means different perspectives coming together in the toolkit that we wouldn't have otherwise had, different experiences that round out us as a people, that empowers, that make us better. That's the beauty of it. That's the substance in diversity. It's not just how you look, it's what you bring to the table. So I just want to say in closing, because, and I always, I never quite know the kind of energy I'm going to bring until I start to speak. I like it like that though, because I know it's just coming from the heart. So one thing though I always know I'm going to say is that it does start and end with love, because that's the driving force for me, and it will always be the driving force, and especially in a time of so much hate and extremism and intolerance, we've got to lean into love, a strong and demanding love. Dr. King called love the most durable force in the world, most durable. He called the most powerful force in the entire universe, and he was absolutely, positively, unequivocally correct on that. Hate it has nothing on love, and it knows it. Hate can't even deal with being in the presence of love. Terrified of it, because it knows it'll just melt. Can't resist it. When it's real, when love is real, when love is real, cannot be denied. It is the most natural of the human emotion. The most natural. You don't have to be taught how to love. Just be human. Just be human. You have to be taught how to hate. No one is born to hate anybody. Try to help my kids understand what's been happening the last couple of weeks. It killed me to figure out a way to do it. They didn't understand what even the idea of hate. What does that mean, Daddy? How do you help me understand hate? I know love, I get it. What's hate though? What is, help me. And I realized you gotta be taught that. That's powerful. When we know that we have that power in us naturally to love, it's who we are as human beings. We've gotta lean into that as we do the work these next 16 days. Love your neighbors. Love your community. Love being a Democrat. Love being an American. Love the work. Love the process. Don't take it for granted. Lean in. Be vulnerable. Open your heart. Genuinely be there for yourselves and for your community. And I guarantee you, when you do that, it is irresistible. It truly is. So in conclusion, the world is watching. Our country. The stakes are high. But don't get caught up in the macro stuff. Don't. Focus on what's right in front of you. Focus on everything you do that you can control day in and day out. Down to each conversation you have. Down to each embrace you have. From the handshake to the hug. Focus on that. Be very intentional. You know, as election day approaches, as a candidate, I always like that because it was like you feel like everything begins to matter even more. It's just, you can't help it because time is compressed. So everything really matters. It allows you to really just keep locking in. And the days get tighter and you feel like you could almost break up the days by segments and what can I do in this moment, You feel this real intentionalness in your actions. You gotta try to lean into that and be mindful of what you're doing at every moment. You know, as you run through the tape, and not just to the candidates, to all of us who are supporting, what can you do day in and day out? So be great. Now is the time to be great. And the good news is, all that really means is be human. Just be you, be true, be honest, be real, be authentic, be genuine, be free. We do these things, we do win. We win. We don't just win elections, which we know is a good thing. We win in life. Our children win. Our communities win. Our state wins. Our country wins. The world wins. When this becomes the norm. All right, I think I'm done. Thank you very much.